For this issue, we are going to pay homage to Bill Anders, who passed away last week by visiting Apollo 8, which is in the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. For our Patreon subscribers, we'll be going over how Bill saved Apollo 8 from flying off into deep space. For our paying subscribers, we'll explain how the crew of Apollo 8 got into that situation. Apollo 8 was quickly put together in 4 months to beat the Russians to the moon. Bill was the lunar module pilot, but since the lunar module was not ready, the mission was changed. Instead of testing the equipment, the crew was to go to the moon, orbit, then come home pulling ahead in the space race. Several major hurdles like deep space navigation and rocket reliability were tested that would lead to the final goal of landing on the moon. Bill also took the iconic picture, Earthrise, stating that they came to explore the moon and discovered the Earth. The MSI has done a great job displaying and preserving Apollo 8 spacecraft, as well as other spacecraft and artifacts. It's well worth the visit. For our Patreon subscribers, our story starts on the way back from the moon, when all of a sudden the spacecraft started acting very suspiciously and then started to rattle and then began to spin. Bill Anders jumped into one of the command positions and started to use the thruster that we see right here, this right here, and unfortunately, the 8-ball that he saw was nothing but white, and things were spinning precariously out of the window. The sun was shining inside, and then the shadows moving all around, and he could not figure out what was going wrong with the spacecraft. Well, what he did to stabilize it, since he did not have the 8-ball, was he looked at the dust that was floating around, and what he did was he understood Newton's laws of motion, and knew that it wasn't the dust moving around the spacecraft, it was them. So he stabilized the dust, and by stabilizing the dust, they were able to reset the computer and go back on a corrected course to Earth to land safely. Now, for those of you who subscribe by paying to my site, what happened was with the program, verb, and noun. These are all the functions telling the computer what to do. So all of this is a program, like say you have Windows, say you wanted to save a paper, but instead of this program being Windows, it was spelled out in numbers. So let's say that Windows was program 77. Now, verb is what you wanted to do. So the verb would be like 31 would be open up, and then the noun is what you wanted to do with the verb in the program. So the noun could be the paper on Apollo 8. So what we have here is, for the program, Windows, do or open up the paper Apollo 8. Well, what happened right here is, unfortunately, Jim Lovell was very, very tired, and he didn't put in the correct number. Instead, he put in the number, and it made the computer, and the program was for takeoff on the launch pad. And what that meant was, though it was sitting with its nose straight up, which is why the 8-ball was completely white, because that's what how the spaceship would be positioned for takeoff. And that's why the 8-ball wouldn't work for him. So once Bill Anders stabilized the spacecraft with dust, they could put in the correct program with the verb and the noun, and then get take positions of stars and put them in here, and that's how they reprogrammed the ship and got back to Earth safely.